This is a Blaze Radio production.
We're covering Who's on Deck,
hitting the ice on the hockey scene,
and hosting a racing roundtable.
This is sports.
This is news.
This is everything you need to know about the future.
This is the Scoutin' Session.
We welcome you back this Wednesday for the 10th episode of the Scoutin' Session. We are glad to be back after a little bit to talk of the up-and-coming sports stars and highlight young standout performances at the professional level. Thank you all for joining us this afternoon. My name is Ella Walter-Sanchez, and I'm joined by
Noah Reed.
Today we are missing Jordan Talley. The three of us will hopefully all be back together in studio next week, but we're going to get right into it. I am back to my regularly scheduled programming, being in the studio and reporting on baseball again with Who's on Deck. So, this week's person is Ethan Holiday, who is an infielder. He kind of rotates between shortstop and third base. He is the number one 2025 prospect. Rankings by Minor League Baseball. He's 18 years old and born in Austin, Texas. He bats left and throws right. And as I said before, he's an infielder. So something a little different about Ethan that we haven't quite talked about with baseball specifically. We've talked about it a lot with racing because it doesn't happen as much with baseball, but his dad was a well-known, now retired baseball player. He was a 7-time All-Star, 2011 World Series champion, 4-time Silver Slugger, NLCS MVP, and his dad is Matt Holliday, a very familiar name for those who are familiar with baseball. He played baseball from 2004 to 2018 for the Rockies, Oakland Athletics, St. Louis Cardinals, and New York Yankees. He was an outfielder and designated hitter. He's now a hitting consultant as many retired baseball players become coaches, and he's also his son's coach. Ethan's uncle, Josh Holliday, is a college baseball coach who played in the minor leagues but didn't quite make it past that. He is the head coach of the Oklahoma State Cowboys and was hired to this position prior to the 2013 season, so he's been there for well over 10 years. So back to Ethan. He is currently a senior at Stillwater High School in Stillwater, Oklahoma. In 2022, he was a member of the U.S. national baseball team that won the U15 Baseball World Cup and was named the top shortstop of the tournament. He also participated in MLB's High School Home Run Derby, which the MLB holds as a part of their all-star traditions every summer. They really like to incorporate young talent as well as their current MLB talent in that all-star sort of traditions. He is committed to attend Oklahoma State University, Stillwater, to play college baseball for the Cowboys, which is the team his uncle is the current coach of. He is rated the number one prospect by MLB.com, Baseball America, and Perfect Game. And before his senior year of high school, he signed a name, image, and likeness deal with Adidas, which was the company's first deal with a high school baseball player. And his brother Jackson is also highly rated, but Ethan is above his brother. And I thought his story was kind of interesting, first of all, because his dad is a baseball player, and we haven't really talked about legacies yet, which there aren't as many in baseball as there are in other sports. And also because he's going to be playing for his uncle most likely, and the whole name, image, and likeness thing. Because I feel like that's a new thing overall in, junior sports, and the fact that he's the first high school baseball player to be signed with a name, image, and likeness deal for Adidas. So yeah, quite an interesting story.
Well, you bring up a great point right there, Ella, about name, image, and likeness. I mean, we're seeing this more and more often. I mean, it really started, I feel like, in the NCAA level, where you started seeing all of these athletes start signing these deals, and then suddenly, before you know it, they're turning pro.
Yeah.
But now it's starting to streak down to the high school level. I mean, I remember the first article that I read my senior year, hearing the first, one of the first cross-country runners to get an NIL deal, and it kind of stopped me in my tracks. I was like, whoa. Like these deals are legit because they don't just necessarily affect the player. I'm sure Ethan's going to be getting Adidas training, Adidas gear, but because that's what Ethan's getting, the team has to match.
Yeah.
So I know in the case of, cross country, the girl who I'm thinking of, not only did she get shoes, not only did she get gear, her entire team got shoes, gear, training, which is like,
That's super cool.
kind of awesome. Not even gonna lie.
Yeah.
But it's really cool, and I'm curious to see, like, you know, the whole point of this show is to highlight young prospects, right? And so, with NIL deals becoming as big as they are, like, are they gonna start, like, what? I'm curious, what's the youngest NIL deal? And we're just gonna keep seeing that bar dropped and dropped and dropped until like.
You know,
Who knows?
I was trying to investigate further into but every single article with him kind of just talked about the fact that he is the first high school baseball player to receive an NIL deal from Adidas. But I think that's pretty cool, the point that like the entire team gets that, because those things aren't just like for show. I feel like it also impacts your confidence, and then also to the point of the training. They probably have great training as is, and considering that they have great connections to the MLB through his dad, but having that through Adidas, I know he's some ambassador for some like new shoe that they have. Like that's like part of his deal is some new Adidas shoe. I don't remember specifically the name, or I don't know. But anyway, but I just think that's so cool that it not only elevates the player specifically and not only Ethan, but his team as well. And I don't know. It'll be interesting to start seeing more of that in high school, though, because I feel like it just barely became a big thing in college. So the fact that it's already spreading to high school is kind of crazy to me. I didn't even know that had happened until I was reading about him. And it was like, oh, yeah, he's the first person to sign an NIL deal for high school baseball. So I thought that was interesting.
Yeah, and I mean, I just did a little digging right now, and the youngest NIL deal was signed with Nike at 13 years old.
Oh my goodness.
Which is wild. So, but I want to go back to something you mentioned earlier about Ethan in particular. You said he bats left and throws right.
Yes.
How dangerous does that make a player in either baseball or softball, being able to have almost kind of that like switch up? I know it's a lot more common now, but still, like, what does that add to your versatility on the field?
Yeah, I definitely feel like in his situation, it's just kind of like something that happened. Like, I feel like it's very common where they're a righty, but they also bat left. Like, it's just like a funny little thing and how it works out and where they're comfortable and how it figured out where they're started. But the most dangerous are switch hitters, because okay, let me back up. MLB recently changed rules because to speed up the game, because managers would put in pitchers for just one batter because the matchup would match up perfectly. But to speed up the game, you now have to face 3 batters. So it's a little different now. But a switch hitter is now attacking the pitcher rather than the pitcher attacking the hitter. So it's a little, the most dangerous type of hitter is one that can bat on both sides of the plate, but he's dangerous in the fact that he can bat left, and it's way less common. But it's just a funny little thing that he bats left and throws right, because that's also not very common. But I would say the most dangerous is a switch hitter, because most of the time the pitcher has the power, but in that case, the batter is completely in power because they can just flip-flop on the pitcher. You don't really have to say what you're going to do that night. You can just switch it up for each at-bat.
And then, as I was going through the stats earlier, and then you mentioned that he's a shortstop, a really talented shortstop. I'm curious, from your perspective, what is the most important position in baseball minus the pitcher, from strictly a fielding perspective? I know that's a big question to ask, but I'm curious.
Oh goodness. Honestly, I feel like
if you're building a team, let me lay it out like this. If you're building a team,
Okay.
Are you focusing on your baseman? Are you focusing on, shortstop? Are you fielding on your outfielders? If you had to make a tier list almost, how would it go?
Well, I feel like it goes obviously pitching first, and then I feel like infield, outfield. Obviously, the outfield matters in catching those balls that are close to like the fence or whatnot. But I definitely feel like infield, I would want to say first base, because that's where if the person that is commanding the first spot that all of the hitters are running to once they get it and they can't catch the ball or they can't command that like spot, then that would be an issue. But it's also very helpful. I'm thinking I was just covering a softball game last weekend, and I think one of our players was out on like short or second, and they both have to work together to control second. And there was like 3 double plays that we could have had that didn't happen. So I would say first, then short, second, third in my most important to least. But that is completely opinion based. Do not go off of that. It's definitely based on any scenario. All positions are important. And the catcher is also very important, because if you've ever seen a situation where the bases are loaded, the catcher will walk forward and tell everybody what to do. Like, you know how like the third base coach has like the signs that they give everybody. When the bases are loaded, I was also a catcher for many years, so catcher appreciation. But the catcher will come out and give everybody signs on what to do, because bases are loaded. Everybody has to know what to do. Even the outfield has to know, what to do. And there's several different situations. So, yes, I feel like the catchers are underappreciated, but I feel like that would be my list, I guess. But all positions are important. But if you don't have good pitching, your entire team is going to fall apart.
Sorry, I know I kind of threw that on you spontaneously, but it just kind of appeared in my mind. I was like, I'm curious what Ella would have to say on this topic. I mean, baseball is such a complex sport, but it's also changing too. And I'm curious because you did mention they're making that switch to, shorten games. And I will say that's probably my biggest gripe with baseball is...
That's what everybody says. It's so long.
It's long, but like... Then I'll have people come at me and go like, well, racing's long. And I'm like, yeah, but there's usually something happening at all points in times during the race. Whereas in baseball, like you said, there could be, a 5-10 minute warm-up period for, 5 different pitchers. And that, compounds over itself.
Oh, yeah, no, nothing is worse than, like, not only your team losing, but just it being the most boring game ever when it's, like, 1-0 and it stays that way the entire game. Like, nothing is more boring than that. But I know I mentioned like the automatic balls and strikes. I got to see it in a spring training game and it was really cool. It all happened so fast. I didn't even like notice it happening because all of a sudden on the screen it was like automatic balls and strikes, and it was literally like 1/10 of an inch that the ball was in the strike zone and they challenged it and they got the strike. But it's crazy because it's like literally the tiniest little sliver and they're like, oh, it's a strike. But it was really cool to watch, and it happened so fast that it doesn't, I know that was like a lot of people's concern is like, oh, like this is going to take forever, but they do it on every single pitch. They just don't necessarily show it. And it was really cool. It literally happened in 2 seconds and all of a sudden it was on the screen and it was like, oh, it's a strike. It's not like it's so clear to see. But anyway, it was really interesting, and I do get that with baseball. But my tip to speed up the game is score it, because then there's something happening at all times for you if you have a scorebook and you're writing everything down. But it can be a really long, boring game.
Hey, speaking of games, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, but isn't it opening day for the Diamondbacks?
Tomorrow! I'm going. I'm so excited.
Okay, it's tomorrow. Okay, I know I saw something about it. I wasn't positive. Sorry, guys. I'm clearly uninformed on the
also,
world
I
of
have
baseball.
a question. Since you said racing is long, I've never watched anything about racing. How long is, like, a race?
So, okay, big NASCAR, average race, probably between 3.5 hours. Crown Jewels, the longer, like the 500, 600 mile distances, those can be anywhere from like 4.5 hours.
Oh my gosh.
It honestly, it's hard because it depends on where the cautions fall. If you have a clean and green race that goes stage 1, stage 2, stage 3 without really any wrecks, without any trouble, you can click off laps in 30 seconds at some tracks. And so it kind of just depends on the track you're racing at, the number of cautions, there's a lot of factors, but I would say a race day experience, like for example, we got to the track, I was recently in Las Vegas, and we got to the track, I want to say around, 10:30 or 11, and then we didn't leave the track until around 4:35ish. So, and the race started at 12:47. So, yeah, it's a long experience, but I mean, there's always something happening, which is fun. But
that's crazy. I did not think I thought they were like 2 hours.
No, F1 is really but that's, again, it depends on the series. F1, IndyCar, you could have a race done in an hour and a half. So NASCAR is kind of the why can't I think of the word here? The odd one out, if you will, on just like length of races. But that's a good segue on over to our racing roundtable. So this week on the Scoutin' Session, we've got another amazing driver to highlight, and I want to just get right into it. We're featuring Heather Hadley, a.k.a. The Heat, a 23-year-old race car driver originally from Vallejo, California. That's kind of in my neck of the woods. And so Heather began racing on the go-kart scene before moving over to Legends when she was 14 years old.
Wow. But
before we dive into her career up to this point, I want to just let the audience get to know her better. So, outside of the car, Heather was an honor roll student, often participating in community events, helping fulfill her dream of becoming a role model to children, which is pretty cool. Like Lainey Boyce, we highlighted a few weeks ago, she seeks to make a difference in the world through efforts on and off the track. She's also a huge fan of Ted Lasso, loves pasta. Heather's favorite color is red, and she enjoys listening to Cage the Elephant while watching the movie Rush. So just some fun facts courtesy of her website, which I also have to comment is a very, very well done website. But back to her development. At 19 years old, she transitioned to asphalt sportsman cars after putting together an incredible racing resume up to that point. In 2019, she became the first female ever to win a Silver State Winter Series championship, put together a season of 4 firsts, 2 runner-ups, and a pair of third-place runs. And did I mention she earned Rookie of the Year honors? That was her rookie season.
Wow.
Pretty incredible there. And then she spent 2 more years making noise in the Legends. Then in 2022, Heather was noticed by Mazda. She was the Mazda Women's Initiative Scholarship winner, receiving $75,000 to go towards the Idemitsu MX-5 Cup Series, presented by BF Goodrich Tires. That's a tongue twister.
Yeah.
But we've already heard about Mazda working with young drivers. We had Joey Andrews on the show already, and that leads me into this week's Fast Fact. We talked to Joey. We got to know about how Mazda bolstered his career, and honestly, I was really surprised for this. I did not realize how far down that ladder of Mazda development goes. They're one of the top brands. They have gotten behind grassroots racing, supporting their drivers in so many different ways. In fact, their Women in Motorsports initiative is about more than just funding. It's equally important to provide recipients with resources to improve their driving, data analysis, and media presence, which is super important. Plus, the Mazda family is rich with experienced coaches and mentors to prepare drivers for professional racing. And I cannot say enough about how important this kind of backing is for a sport that's primarily driven by sponsorship. I don't know if we've really talked about this much, but racing's a sport where a lot of talented drivers can get bogged down and, almost left behind by the sport if they don't bring the funding that's required to get behind the seat. So Mazda's doing great things for the motorsports community. Now let's get back to the show. So what did Heather do with all of that Mazda support? Well, she spent a season competing in the Mazda MX-5 Cup Series, earned 10 top finishing female awards with 2 top 10s, finishing 8th at St. Petersburg with IndyCar and 7th at Road America with the IMSA Series. So those were just little companion dates. Now in 2025, she's already scored a top 10 finish on the streets of St. Pete. And this is really, really cool. She was featured on an all-new Amazon Prime show called First to Finish. It follows the trials and tribulations of drivers Heather Hadley, who we're featuring, and Sally Mott as they navigate the 2024 Welland Mazda MX-5 Cup season and the non-stop schedule of BSI Racing team owner Shay Holbrook. The show debuted yesterday exclusively on Amazon Prime. I actually have it up right now. I'm going to probably be giving it a watch. I tried last night, got bogged down with work, so I apologize. I would have loved to have had time to really dive into the nitty-gritty on the show, but it looked, from the outside, what I saw, it looks like it's been really well put together, and I'm very, very excited to see what kind of stuff they put out. But we'll just have to wait and see if the Heat can turn up the pressure in her next event, which is going to be a doubleheader at Barber Motorsports Park, May 3rd and 4th. Also going to be a companion series with IndyCar. So a lot of eyeballs will be out on the MX-5 series. I mean, there's so much to unpack with that. What stuck out to you right away?
Well, first of all, I love her nickname. I think that's great. It's always great when, athletes or sports figures have a nickname. I feel like that's the best way to brand yourself, especially in a sport where we've talked about branding is so big. I mean, we had Joey talk about his name, the Stiglet, and now we have the Heat. And I have a question. Now that you talked about how long racing is, double headers exist? Like, is that like a 10-hour day, or are they shorter?
Well, Ella, I actually forgot to mention to you there are such thing as endurance races.
Oh, God.
Let me just tell you, one of the crown jewels of racing as a motorsport is the 24 hours of Le Mans.
Oh, God.
It is a 24-hour race start to finish, but trust me, relax. The drivers are not running all 24 hours. That would be insanity.
Yeah, that would be insane.
They do cycle off. So you'll have drivers.
So it's like a team type of thing?
Yeah. So you'll usually have a group of 4 drivers, and they'll race in what they call stints. And so you could, and it's really interesting because you'll have, you're trying to put together the best 4 drivers, because you could have, a fantastic driver who just dusts the competition. But if you don't have a good team, then that car falls back, could get wrecked.
So
you never know what
it's sort of
happens.
like relay races.
Yeah, it's like relay races, but with a moving car and so many different factors, like mechanical issues, like speed, like position, like relays don't happen at night. Too. So you're driving at tracks where it's pitch dark outside and all you have in front of you are like Le Mans. I don't think enough people realize that Le Mans is not like an insanely well lit course. And when you're driving at night, I want you guys to try and paint this picture for me. You're driving at night and someone flashes their high beams and it blinds you for a second. And do you ever get a little nervous when you're going maybe 60 down the freeway?
Yeah.
Try going 190 miles per hour down a long straightaway into a hard braking zone.
Yeah, no, I could not. Is it like the same track for all 4 people? Okay.
Yeah, so it's the same course, and endurance racing is fun. Le Mans is definitely a bucket list item for me to go and cover.
Where is that?
It is in France.
Oh, wow. That's really cool. That would be amazing. And also, another note I have, Rookie of the Year at our age, at 19, is just an insane piece on her resume. And I also thought it was really nice. I mean, you talked about it, what Mazda does. I mean, we've talked about it a lot with Joey and then with Kenna, both of the racers we've had on the show, about sponsorships and such. And Joey is a Mazda racer, as you talked about. And I think it's so cool that they not only, sponsor these racers, but really help them in like all of these kind of ways, and also help specifically women in this thing that she has. So I feel like it's great that they're specifically helping women like Heather, and it's always great to highlight women in sports, and has specific scholarships for women in sports. So kudos to them.
Yeah, and I mean, it goes beyond the scholarships. Like a television docuseries produced by Amazon Prime, which...
Yeah, that's crazy.
I don't think a lot of people are giving Amazon Primes their flowers. They have put together, a lot of great sports content. They're really starting to diversify themselves in the sports field. Yeah, everybody knows they have Thursday Night Football, but what a lot of people don't know is they're going to be the exclusive home of NASCAR for 5 weekends. They've done a lot of TV shows with, different. I know they've been big on adapting a lot of book series, unfortunately, like the Lord of the Rings, but we won't talk about that because that was bad. And this is not the time nor the place.
Nope.
But I will say they have done a great job of really putting an emphasis on quality sports coverage. And I will say I have not been looking forward to a new TV partner in NASCAR like I have for Amazon Prime. I think it is going to be a very progressive broadcast in the sense that it's going to push boundaries. We're going to see new technology, I hope. We're going to see new kinds of graphics. We're going to see, hopefully the return of studio shows that are on site at the racetrack. So one can hope as a fan. But I mean, pairing a young driver with Mazda, with a global brand like Amazon, you're only going to have benefits. And I will say credit to Heather for being willing to take that leap, because it takes a lot of, pressure to do racing. I've talked to a lot of young drivers who, they go into the spotlight because they have to, not necessarily because they want to. But I feel like if you were to go and look at Heather's socials, I highly encourage you to go look at her website, go check her out on Instagram. Again, it's Heather Hadley. It's incredible. The website's designed well. There's so much information, stats, contact, events, and then her Instagram. So much activation, so much media, all very well done. And I just think that's the way of the future. You have to be all in. And to see a young driver like Heather completely committed to progressing not just her career on the track, but off the track with other organizations as well, it's just incredible.
Yeah, no, it's great. You have to really, especially in the sports world, whether you're an athlete or not, branding yourself is the key to everything. I mean, obviously, like, we all have like our sports journalism things, and we have our websites, and we have our Instagrams, and we have our YouTube channels and whatever, but it's also just as important for young athletes that are trying to make their way and gain these sponsorships and gain, popularity to brand themselves. And from what it sounds like from you, she's a great representation. And one quick question before we wrap up. As a racing fan, I have never really watched it on TV, but is it enjoyable to watch on TV? Like, I feel like a lot of people don't like watching hockey on TV because it's so fast and the puck is so small. Is it the same? Like, I feel like I would get nauseous watching racing on TV.
Racing on TV, there's a big difference. This is a tough question to answer.
Yeah.
But it varies on what your experience is. Like, I enjoy going out to the racetrack, but I also like being able to watch racing at home because I can get my phone and my computer synced up, and I get a lot more information real time. I know what the crew chiefs are saying, what the spotters are saying, how the drivers are handling their cars. Whereas at the racetrack, it's a lot more of, okay, what are you looking at here and now? So that's the shortest answer I can give you on that.
Okay, well, thank you for listening to today's edition of the Scoutin' Session. My name is Ella Walter Sanchez alongside
Noah Reed.
Thank you for listening, and we'll see you next time.